One of the units in Algebra 1A that's often forgotten by the time you're here in Algebra 1B is writing linear equations. So we're going to review a little bit of that in this course. The objective for writing linear equations is, depending on the givens, write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. Let's review again what slope-intercept form is. It's y equals mx plus b. And hopefully you remember that the m stands for the slope of the line. Slope. And b is your y-intercept, or what you use to find your y-intercept. Intercept. Now your y-intercept is actually a point. Oops. Sorry, I keep on hitting the wrong button there. So your y-intercept is actually a point on a line, or on the y-axis, so that b value is written as a coordinate, where 0, b, whatever number is in that b location, it's a point on that line. So 0b is how you write it as a coordinate. So how do you write linear equations? Well, you have to first look at what you are given. Down on the left-hand side of the column, I have 6 givens, 6 scenarios that you could be given at the beginning of the problem. Either you're given 2 points, and if you look over there, I have an example of 2, -5, and -1, 4. So those are 2 coordinates. Now, another way that they could give you the 2 points, they wrote them out for you, but another way they can give them to you is just with a graph. Like here I have a graph, and there's 2 points on the line that intersect on the coordinate plane, and you would have to actually find out the coordinates of those graphs. They may not always have the coordinates listed right beside those 2 points. So that's the same 2 points. Another given you might have is they give you a slope and 1 point on the line. So you can see there they said m is equal to -3, and they give you the point to -5. So that's a little bit easier because less steps then. The other given that they could have is they give you the y-intercept, so that coordinate, and a slope. Or maybe they give you a point and a parallel line, or a point and a perpendicular line. Or finally, maybe they give you the point-slope form of a line. So depending on what you're given is what steps that you will use. Just looking ahead, if you could peer down at some of these steps for each one, a couple of these steps refer back to the number 2 given, because eventually you'll work the problem out, and at some point on one of the steps you'll be left with the slope and a point. So you'll constantly be repeating the final steps for the second given of slope and a point. So let's take a look at a couple of these and see if you can identify them. So on your handout, it has the top of it, Algebra 1B, recall writing equations in slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept of the form of the line, can you write it in now? Y equals mx plus b. Alright, part 1. Write an equation of a line given the slope and the y-intercept. So let's go look back on our chart to see which one that is. Which given is those? So we were looking for the y-intercept and slope. So which one is that? Looks like number 3 is, is the y-intercept and slope. Of all of these is probably the easiest one that you could have. Step 1, plug the m and the b into the y equals mx plus b. Remember that when you have a point that you're told is the y-intercept, that second number is your b value. And so that number just plugs right on the end. Your slope goes right there. So let's take a look at that. So we need to fill in just the m and the b. That's what the step said to do. So you would write y is equal to, well, what's our m value? M is the slope. So -3, then you write in your x, and then your y-intercept. They tell us it's 4, or +4. Now on the ECA, it won't look like this. They'll put in there, they'll have 0, 4 like this, and say that that's your y-intercept. Number 2, same thing. Y is equal to our slope, so 1/2 x. And then this would have been a +0, which you do not need to write. If it's +0, you just leave it off. Right, so if it's not a y-intercept, then you know it can't go through the y-axis. It's probably it is going to be a, it'd have to be a vertical line. Next is, so we have y equals, this time we have a slope of 0x minus 6. Because that has a 0x, it's like it's not there, so you don't have to write the 0x down. You can just write y equals -6. When an equation doesn't have an x in it, remember, then that means it has to be a horizontal line. And I just realized I said something earlier about the +0. That doesn't mean that it's a vertical line, sorry. It just means that it crosses at 0. So this line probably is a straight diagonal with the coordinate x and y, and it's going right through the origin like that. Or it has to. Part 2 of your exercise or practice review says write an equation of a line that passes through each point with the given slope. So what are we given? We're given a point and we're given the slope. Point and slope. So let's look at our chart again and see what steps we need to use for point and a slope. Okay, a point and a slope is the second one. Slope and a point. So when they give you the slope, it should say m is equal to, or they'll say the slope is equal to, but that's your m value. The point has an x value and a y value. So you can see here I've made x equals 2 and y equals -5 as an example. So in these steps here, yeah, I have got it labeled step 3, 4, 5, 6 because it's kind of a continuation of the first one. So our steps are, the first step for this is plug your x, y, and m into the y equals mx plus b formula. And notice how I put parentheses around that x, because when you fill it in, you're going to have to put in the parentheses. So in my example, I had an example slope of -3, so that went right here. And our x value and y value. Let me do this in color for you. Okay, so we have to plug in our x, y, and m. There's our x value, there's our y value, and there's our m value. The equation equals y equals mx plus b. So we just plug those values in. The next step says to multiply m and x. Well, that's these two values right here. -3 times 2 is -6. And then finally it says to solve for b. The way you'd have to do that always is move whatever term is right here to the other side with the opposite sign. So there I wrote +6. And combine those two together, -5 and +6 is +1. So that's our b value. The final step says to plug in your m value and your b value back into the y equals mx plus b equation. So here's our final answer. Notice that the y and the x you just write in. All you're filling in is your m value and your b value that you just calculated. So this is probably, 4 steps really? Step 1, plug x, y, and m. Step 2, multiply m and x. That's all part of solving for b. I just broke it up because you're always going to have to do that step. Step 3, solve for b. And then step 4, plug your m and your b into the equation. So let's try it. Okay. So our first step was to plug in to the equation the x, y, and m into the equation. So y equals, I always think it helps to just write the formula every single time. Y equals mx plus b. Y is equal to -2, that was right there, and equals m is equal to 2. The x, go ahead and put in parentheses, is the 4 plus b. The next step is multiply m and x. So -2 is equal to m and x is 8 plus b, and then solve for b by moving the 8 over as a -8. So what is that? A -10? So our b value is equal to -10. Our final answer is when we plug in the m value and the b value. Our m is what was given, was the 2, and the b is what we just solved for, that's the -10. So in problem number 4, that's the final answer right there. I know they didn't give you even enough room at all on these problems to solve. You're either going to have to write real small, or I'd recommend solving these problems on a separate sheet of paper. I am going to have to erase just so that I can show you the next one. Okay, demonstrate one more, and then I'll leave the last 4 on this page for you to do. Right, again, if you need to look at your chart that I have, I can't display both the chart and the problem at the same time on this, but you have your chart, have it out beside you, and look and say, okay, what are my steps? First step, plug, let's say y equals mx plus b. Plug in everything that you're given and solve for what you're not given, the b value. So I'm given the m, the 3, I'm given the x, which is 3, I'm given the y value, which is 7, and put plus b. To solve for b, you have to multiply the m and x together. So that's equal to -9, and bring that over to the other side as +9. That's all gone now. 7 plus 9 is 16, and that's your b value. Now that we know our b value, plug in your m and your b that you need to make the y equals m, that's the -3 you're given, x, plus b. Your b value was positive 16, so you write that in. So that's your final answer for number 5. Go ahead and try number 6, 7, 8, and 9 on your own, and then you can check your answers with the answer sheet. Alright, if you're done with part 2, let's look at part 3. It says write an equation of a line that passes through each pair of points. Here I'm trying to display both the guide for you and the practice sheet. So you are given 2 points. So down on your chart it says given 2 points. That's the first scenario. When you're given the 2 points, you have to calculate slope, and you're going to use the slope formula. This formula is located on the formula sheet that you're given when you take the ECA, so you do not have to memorize this formula, but you do need to know how to use it, and there is a trick so that you don't have to even memorize or even mess with it a whole lot. Alright, to solve for slope is the first step, and then if you look on there it says step 2, says take one of the points that you're given and the slope that you just calculated and go to scenario 2 where you have a slope and a point. The same thing we just got done doing. Alright, so let's try these. Let me move this out of the chart out of the way. You can still have it in front of you though. Wow, I've been talking for a little while now, and started on part 2 and got all the way through it and realized I wasn't even recording. I'm not sure where I start or stopped or accidentally stopped the recording. So I'm going to start section 3 over again. I apologize if you're hearing a lot of this a second time. So in part 3, you are looking at writing an equation of line passing through a pair of points. So you have 2 points. Look on your reference sheet and you'll see, you'll see the slope formula. Okay, I think I already did that part for you. So the slope formula is slope is equal to y2 opposite of y1. That's what you say there. You don't say -1, you say opposite of y1, all over x2 opposite of x1. So what they mean is if we have 2 points, let's say this is point 1 and this is point 2, each point has an x value and a y value. So each, on the first point, you would say this is x1, y1, and on the second point, that would be x2, y2. The little numbers down below would just simply say which point are you referring to, or which y are you referring to. So let's do this. y2 is the -2 that you see there. But then you see opposite of y1. Our y1 is 1. What's its opposite? Well, -1. All over x2, look at your x2, is the 8, opposite of x1. So x1 is a +5, so you make it a -5. The formula will be on the formula sheet, so you do not have to memorize it. You just need to know how to use it like this. I've got another method of solving for slope that doesn't even involve using or looking at this formula. Let me rewrite our 2 points. And with my method, I should say, the first thing you need to do is just change the signs, little trick, change the signs of the first point right at the beginning. So instead of writing +5, write -5, -1. So I changed the signs of just the first point. Copy down the second point, 8, -2. Then I'm going to draw this great big S, S for slope. It starts here, goes to here, back, and around. Do you see my big S? This lets me know what numbers go on top, and which numbers go on bottom. And I've already changed my sign, so it should be good. So on top, I started here with the -2, and I went to the -1. All over, here's my bottom, I start here at the 8, and I go to a -5. Isn't that a lot easy? Or a lot easier? I think so. I don't know. So you could try either way. You notice that you do get the same numbers. Now the next step is just to simplify. So simplifying your slope equals, well, -2 minus 1 equals -3. 8 minus 5 is +3. -3 over +3 equals a -1. And that's your slope. If you look on your second step, it says, now that you've got your slope, take that m value and one of your points, it doesn't matter which point you choose, but just choose one, and now go down to our second scenario of point and slope. And you'll be following all those same steps like in all the practice problems you had in part 2. So let me do some erasing here so that we have the rest of the room to finish this problem. Okay, so now we know that our slope is equal to -1 And we're going to choose a point. I usually choose a point that has the smaller numbers. So I'm going to choose the 5 and the 1. We write the equation y equals mx plus b. We fill in all the given values that we currently have. So our y is 1, our m is -1, our x is 5 plus b. And then you have to solve for b. You start off by always multiplying m and x together. So -1 times 5 is -5. Take that over to the other side of the equation as a plus 5. 1 plus, and that'll all cancel out here. 1 plus 5 is 6, so that's our b value. Now that we know our m value and our b value, we can plug that into the slope-intercept form equation for our final answer, which should be, find a place to write this, y is equal to -1, that's our slope, x, and our b value, so plus 6. If that is a positive 6, you do need to write that plus sign. I see a lot of people that just write 6 there and forget the sign. Sometimes you'll have a negative. So that's your final answer for number 10. Please try number 11 and 12 on your, 11 and 12. I think there's even more problems down below. I have to scroll down. So you have 5 problems to practice and check your answer on your answer sheet. Ask if you need any help or find out why you missed it.